And also with the OK bombing, I remember seeing reports where basically they're showing the local reports, and they said that it was two bombs that went off, and they found a third bomb that they were able to you make safe. Sort of basically, I can't remember the name right now, but anyway, what happens is I was also reading a report off of your website. Actually, your website is a very informative website. I'll say that what really happens, really good place to go look at stuff. And I just wanted to read one line from this report, which came from a retired brigadier general. It is impossible that the destruction into the building could have resulted from such a bomb alone. So she's just talking about how the official version was talking about, well, it's just Timothy McVeigh's bomb, and she's saying it's not possible for the amount of damage done to the place.
That's absolutely correct, and I think the general you're referring to is General Benjamin K. Parton, who was a weapons expert, a munitions expert during his entire career. There were several attempts to duplicate the effects of the bomb. All of them failed to do so, and when I say the bomb, I'm talking about a Ryder rental truck filled with fuel oil and fertilizer. At one point, the government kept saying more and more weight, and the bomb kept getting bigger and bigger until it was really too big to be in the truck. Then they took away the fuel oil and said, okay, he used nitromethane, which is a racing fuel, and that made it big enough, and they still couldn't get the blast effects. We have documented audio recordings, 2 different audio recordings, which indicate the firing of cutter charges ahead of time, cutter charges located inside the building itself. One of the survivors from the OKC bombing, who had moved to Oklahoma from California, said he felt the building shake and thought it was an earthquake, and he had time enough to get under his desk before the big truck bomb went off. So that tells us something happened in the building that shook the building several seconds before the actual truck bomb went off. I think the interval is 4.6 seconds that's captured on the 2 audio tapes. So it appears that the building was rigged with cutter charges to actually bring it down, and the truck bomb was just out there for show and tell in order to be able to point the finger at domestic terrorists and so forth.
It's sort of like something that Department of Homeland Security, with that memo that they recently put out, they'd probably try to justify it by putting that out right there. And at the same time, when Obama was elected, he had a gigantic swell of support from the internet, money coming in. And I have a friend out of the United States who's a private investigator, and he was telling me that it's going to take years to find out who actually gave money to the Obama administration. Now, with that in mind, aren't the American people scared that a third country like Saudi Arabia, possibly Israel, or another Middle Eastern country may have given money to Mr. Obama to be the president? And therefore, if that happened, what exactly is this third country going to ask for in return from the Obama to give to him that the United States owns at this time?
Well, it is no secret in this country that Israel has a tremendous influence over our government, not only with direct lobbying and connections from the government of Israel to the United States, and certainly throughout their huge spy network, part of which was recently uncovered in the Pentagon, and involved AIPAC. And then there's AIPAC itself, which funnels vast sums of money to congressional and presidential campaigns in order to buy influence after the election is over. And they donate to both sides, so it doesn't matter who wins, they will be owed favors for, that they'll expect back. We know because of the Bernie Madoff pyramid scandal and the collapse there that quite a bit of the money AIPAC was using to fund favored U.S. congresspeople was coming from this fraud and deception. So everybody was saying, why did Bernie Madoff, who had so much of his own money that he earned legally, why was he running this huge scam? And it appears that at least in part, this pyramid scam was the funding mechanism by which AIPAC was able to raise money to basically buy the U.S. Congress.
In the past, I had guests on that talked about Goldman & Sachs and basically involvement with Barrick Gold, Deutsche Bank and stuff like that. And I know that a lot of the players in the Obama administration right now are the bankers and the Wall Street people. I know that Citibank's involved there, Bank of America, and all with the record reported profits from these organizations at this time. It's almost like they fleece the American people. Could you give us other names of people that are involved with the Obama administration that a listener audience can basically punch in and find out more information on them?
Well, I think the first one you mentioned is really where they need to focus, and they need to look at what's going on with Goldman Sachs, both in connection to the so-called plunge protection team, and more recently with what appears to be another growing scandal involving high-frequency program trading. Now, back in the 1980s, we had a brief experiment with computer software that would watch the stock market and then execute these buy and sell orders without human intervention. And it produced a tremendous volume in the market, and it created a tremendous amount of chaos and volatility because these programs would be looking for the trends and didn't realize or weren't programmed to understand they themselves had become the trends. And so it just drove the market into these incredibly wild cycles, and it caused a crash. And so the New York Stock Exchange and the government said, okay, no more program trading. You can use all the computers you want to analyze the market, but somebody, some human carbon-based life form on a keyboard has to execute the trades themselves manually in order to slow the volume down. Now, during the last 8 years, under the Bush administration, when they were deregulating the industry and they repealed Glass-Steagall and basically set the stage for this runaway derivatives nightmare that we're all still feeling, the New York Stock Exchange said that certain favored, trusted traders, mostly Goldman Sachs, would be allowed to go back to using this high-frequency program trading. We are now beginning to understand Goldman Sachs is not doing any business at the consumer level anymore. Their entire profitability, their record-setting profits for the last couple of months, appear to be directly connected to this high-frequency program trading. And what they're doing is using the computers to basically, you know, they're doing two things. They're writing stocks, and every time it goes up or down a penny, they're doing buy-sell orders very, very rapidly just to get that penny here and penny there, but they're doing it millions of times a day. The other thing they're doing is they're buying and selling stocks over and over again at the exact same price, because that way they get a broker's fee. When human brokers do this, it's called churning. It's considered unethical behavior. Goldman Sachs is doing it at a very high volume to the tune of $100 million a day they're taking out of the stock market, for which they're putting nothing of any value back in. And common sense has to tell you, at some point the stock market is not going to be able to continue supporting $100 million a day in lost revenue every single day. At some point, it's going to start pulling the market down despite all the manipulations. People are going to understand that this is a huge fraud. It makes Bernie Madoff's pyramid look like Scotch tape in the Sunday collection plate at the church. And when that happens, it's really going to start coming apart. The equities market will collapse.
And also, when the Obama administration was elected, it was elected on promises of change. Yet, I'm looking at it, and this is my humble opinion, I feel like he's still the emperor with no clothes, just similar to the Bush administration. Same policies are still continuing and everything. You're still seeing the soldiers dying, the civilians dying in the illegal wars of Afghanistan and Iraq. You know, and what I'm wondering is it this emperor also at the same time, he's starting to restrict the flow of information to certain people about certain information in regards to certain activities of the government and certain programs the government has. You know, it's almost like he's starting to march the government towards what I feel like it's a new version of Nazi Germany all over again, but in the United States of America.
Yeah, it does seem that somebody, rolled the dice and said, okay, the U.S. gets to be the bad guy for the next World War. And it does seem that we're headed this way. We've already got Russia and China saying that an attack on Iran is going to trigger a global war. But you need to look at the history of the United States, because back, we had a big economic crash in 1904. We got out of that by going into World War I. We had the great crash of 1929. We didn't get out of that until we went into World War II. Now we've had the crash of 2008, and they're already salivating and drooling. We got to get a war going, because that will make everything all better. Or at the very least, we've got something to blame the economic hardships on, so the American people don't turn on the government and tar and feather them for wrecking the economy in the first place. So that's kind of what's going on. The real danger here is, in World War I and World War II, the United States was an industrial powerhouse. We could manufacture in high volume war material to support a global war. We don't have that anymore. We've given our manufacturing away to other countries. We're hideously in debt. Nobody wants to loan us any more money. We can't make war material in the volume to support a major war. We're barely supporting the wars we're already in. If there's a new world war, the United States is going to lose it.